And so in Paleobiology, 1977, page 145, Stephen Jay Gould explains to us why gradualism has been preferred. And I quote, "The general preference that so many of us hold for gradualism is a metaphysical stance embedded in the history of Western cultures. It is not a high-order empirical observation induced from the objective study of nature." God, nail him to the wall. But praise God, because we've been saying that for years. And here's the leading advocate now admitting it's not because we've studied nature objectively. It's not a high-order empirical observation. Because we don't prefer evolution because we've studied nature empirically. It's our preference, metaphysical in character, embedded in the history of Western culture. He said, hey, the wave of future is secularism. That's why our metaphysic is secular. If our metaphysic is secular, then we hold to impersonal forces being the source of life, gradually developing the way that I'm describing. And then he says, you shouldn't have the idea that this is an empirical, observational study of nature that led us to this. This is a philosophical pre-commitment. Already in 1874, John Tyndall had said the basis of the doctrine of evolution consists not in an experimental demonstration, but in its general harmony with scientific thought. The basis for the doctrine of evolution doesn't come from experimentation. It comes from, this is our concept of science. Louis Veneur, in The Advocate, 1984, he was the president of the Biological Society of Strasbourg, wrote, "Evolution is a fairy tale for grown-ups. This theory has helped nothing in the progress of science. It is utterly useless." And here's the president of the Biological Society of Strasbourg, a man who became the director of research at the French Center of Scientific Research. He says it's just a fairy tale. It doesn't help anything. It's useless. You see what I mean? Only a narrow slice of people in this world have any idea of the state of the argument. Because if you ask your next door neighbor most likely is going to say, oh yeah, we know evolution's been proven, and it's proven scientifically. The difficulty is the scientific evidence is strong against the gradualist theory of evolution. Let me talk a bit more about that. A natural clock, that's a metaphor, for trying to date how old the earth is from certain indicators in nature itself. Natural clock. Natural clocks show us that there has not been enough time in Earth's history to accommodate the theory of evolution. The theory of evolution requires that there be between 15 and 25 billion years here. Of course, the mathematicians have already blown that apart. I started with that. But just looking at natural clocks, it takes roughly 1,000 years to produce an inch of topsoil by erosion, by the forces of wind and rain. And so the topsoil on the Earth's crust, if we've been here 15 to 25 billion years, should be a rather thick layer, shouldn't it? As a matter of fact, around the Earth, the topsoil depth is between 6 and 9 inches. People will say, oh, well, then it must have washed into the ocean. Well, if it's washed into the ocean, then the sediment on the floor of the ocean should be miles deep. The sediment on the floor of the ocean is about 0.56 of a mile thick on average. Given the present rate at which meteor dust is settling on the Earth's surface, meteor dust settles on the Earth from collision with the Earth's atmosphere. When meteors collide with our oxygenated atmosphere, then they disintegrate and the dust dissipates and it settles on the Earth. You've heard of gravity, right? Given the present rate at which meteor dust settles on the Earth's surface, if the Earth is billions of years old, then the dust from meteors should now be about 50 feet thick. You can go outside and ask yourself whether that's what you observe. There's only enough salt in the ocean to explain thousands of years of mineral erosion in the ocean. The Earth's decaying magnetic field would have passed away already if the Earth had been here billions of years. What I'm saying is, choose your clock. Whichever one you look at, there's not enough time for evolution to have taken place. Look at the fossil record. The fossils don't support the gradualist theory, and evolutionists have to kind of sneak around that and revise their theory to accommodate it, so that all evidence supports their theory, because no evidence could be found anyway. Look at the mathematical probabilities of life arising from non-life. The mathematical probabilities of evolution taking place if the randomness postulate is given a serious interpretation. Why does anybody hold to the theory of evolution?